what we planned and worked hard for. Recent challenges have overtaken us. Our duty is to work through these challenges, overcome them, and it's exactly what keeps the president and his team awake at night.
Well, for the first time, you're hearing from an official member of the cabinet giving a clear timeline within which government plans to fix the economic crisis.
Mr. Speaker, let me be quick to add that we are not wavering at all in our resolve to turn this country around. Ours is a history of turning things around when the country is in crisis. When the MPP government took over the reins of government in 2017, we inherited a challenged economy under an IMF program, which we successfully turned around and exited the program in 27 months. Then came the outbreak of the pandemic, described in June 2020 by IMF as a crisis like never before. A crisis like never before. But the Akufo-Addo government stood up to its responsibilities to the Ghanaian people. I, the finance minister, who was widely described as tight-fisted, even by his own cabinet colleagues, had no choice but to do what the entire world was doing, which was to breach our own self-imposed deficit ceiling in order to save lives and protect livelihoods. We have demonstrated that we can transform this economy when we all come together and put our hearts and minds to it. Mr. Speaker, just as we did in 2017 and 2020, government is resolved to continue to provide the necessary leadership to turn the economy around. Let me assure you, on behalf of the President, that we will do it again within the next 2.5 years. To do this, Mr. Speaker, we'll proceed with great caution, thoughtfulness, creativity, and grit. And as the old adage says, we shall hasten slowly.
Well, after all, this was the mid-year budget review, and expectations ahead of the statement was that the finance minister was going to ask Parliament for more money, considering where the economy is with the revenue shortfalls that we're experiencing and the e-levy not bringing in as much as was earlier anticipated. Well, the finance minister says to Parliament today he's not asking for more money and government will live within its means for the rest of the year.
Mr. Speaker, we have recognized that our post-COVID economic recovery has been uneven and risks remain high. According to the IMF, the global outlook is grim and has darkened significantly. And global uncertainty is exceptionally high, and 2023 is even more uncertain. However, in the 2022 budget, we committed ourselves to chart a course towards growth and fiscal sustainability, and this mid-year policy review reassets the commitment. Mr. Speaker, we've seen some major shifts in our budget assumptions compared to November 2021 when we presented the budget. These changes have led to reduced revenues, increased interest payments, and changes in interest rates and exchange rates. However, we are committed to staying within the appropriation for 2022. In spite of the underperforming revenues and strong external headwinds, we are not seeking additional funds in this mid-year review. We are determined to efficiently use the windfall from the upstream petroleum sector to make up for our revenue shortfalls and aggressively improve our revenue even as we rationalize expenditures.
Well, apart from making use of the windfall that we are currently enjoying because of the high crude oil prices on the international market, which primarily is going to be what we're going to be using in the absence of asking for more money from Parliament, the finance minister also announced today a series of additional revenue measures that will be introduced. The first is what he calls the e-VAT. An amendment of the VAT Act will be done, and for it to commence on the 1st of October, e-VAT will now be levied, and you'll be allowed now to pay your VAT electronically. There'll also be property rates that he also mentioned. Government is working to get this done as soon as possible. and then introduction of upfront payment of VAT when you import stuff into the country. A few of the things that the finance minister talks about today. Well, he didn't give an update on the performance of the e-levy at all in this budget review statement. Many had expected that he would. Well, there have been reactions post the statement that the finance minister presented. Notably, the minority side has been disclosing that embedded in the document, the hard copy that was read today, of course, a summary of what was read today, the detailed copy, they had found a revelation in there that the finance minister had encouraged the central bank, the Bank of Ghana, to print more cedis, which they explain may be the reason for Ghana's high inflation. Listen to the ranking member on Finance Committee in Parliament and former Deputy Finance Minister Kesela Teforsi.
I just had a copy of the document itself, only to realize that between January 2022, January 2022, and June 2022, the minister responsible for finance and the government has gone to the Bank of Ghana and they have encouraged the Bank of Ghana to print money worth 22 billion Ghana cedis. They have printed 22 billion Ghana cedis fresh money without the knowledge of Parliament. Colleagues, I am saddened. No wonder inflation is galloping. No wonder that our reserves position is dwindling. Because when you create a new money out of the thin air, what happens is that inflation will go up. And obviously, again, because it's a new money, you will end up losing your reserves because there will be new consumption. I am surprised that in the minister's statement, he failed to alert all of us that he has encouraged the Bank of Ghana to print new money worth 22 billion Ghana cedis, only for us to see it in this document. And you can see it in the media review document, page 97, appendix 2A. And the Bank of Ghana, they have printed 22 billion and 48 million Ghana cedis. 22 billion and 48 million Ghana cedis, new money that they have printed without approval of Parliament, without informing all of us. This is illegal. It is against the Bank of Ghana Act. And I want to urge the governor of the central bank that he has engaged in an illegality.
Well, thankfully, joining me right now on the telephone line is Dr. Kesela Teforsi. He's a ranking on the Finance Committee in Parliament. He's also the former Deputy Finance Minister. Dr. Teforsi, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you, Ivan.
Also joining me is Dr. Edu Susakodia. He's a lecturer economics at the Department of the Economics Department, lecturer at the Economics Department of the University of Ghana. Dr. Sarkodia, I'm grateful that you could join me. Dr. Teforsi, let me start with you. You mentioned this printing, in effect, quantitative easing, but it's the prerogative of the central bank to do so if the need arises. So why is that illegal, you suggest?
Evans, thank you very much. Evans, to start with, I don't know if you've been able to peruse the Bank of Ghana Act. In fact, the Act provides that any time the central bank decides to loan money to the government in the form of printing, the central bank will have to lend not more than 5% of previous year's revenue, and they would need approval of Parliament. Today, the minister came to Parliament to provide a statement. The statement failed to hint or inform us that they have taken 22 billion Ghana cedis from the central bank, only for us to go through the appendices and realize that they have indeed printed 22 billion and 48 million Ghana cedis.
But that document is also before Parliament, is it not?
That document was not laid. He came in the form of a statement. So the statement that he read In fact, I had a copy of the statement that he read, and this was not laid to Parliament. It was later on that the minority leader had 2 copies, and he gave me 1 copy, and I realized that that is what is in the document. My opinion is that the 22 billion and 48 million requires parliamentary approval, and so Parliament cannot accept a statement as the way to get an approval. In fact, he should have moved a motion to get Parliament to approve what is in the budget or in the media review statement that he read. Because clearly, what the central bank has done is illegal. It's against the Central Bank Act, and I'm surprised that the minister did not state categorically that they have done that. Evans, Ghana is in a crisis. Inflation is in almost 30%. In fact, our currency is deteriorating. Year to date, we are seeing almost 19% depreciation. The truth is that the country is in serious trouble. You do not do quantitative easing in the middle of a major crisis like this.
Why?
And
I mean, other countries have done similar things in crisis.
But I don't think we are in the same situation. You see, when your inflation is hitting 30% or is 30%, and you do quantitative easing, inflation can only go up. At the time that you have your reserve position has gotten worse, you don't create new money out of thin air, because what you are trying to do is that you end up creating new consumption, imports will go up, and so you dwindle your reserves. I am surprised that the government failed to give us reasons why they have gone ahead to borrow such amount of money from the central bank. There may be a genuine reason, but the government failed to alert us. And that is my major concern. Why have they gone out there to borrow 22 billion?
I'm curious.
We demand answers. The answers must come.
I'm curious. So, yes, the statement, if we have like a hard copy of it, it didn't mention this. But isn't there a reason why you then get the full hard copy to inform the debate that will begin tomorrow? I mean, if it's in there, then of course it will come up anyway. And
it is in the appendices. So if you look at Appendix 2A, under the financing year to date, you will notice that the first 2 quarters of the year, government program to borrow from the central bank, zero. Simple means that we are not going to the central bank to borrow any money. Only for us to see year to date, they have borrowed 22 billion. And surprisingly, this 22 billion that they've borrowed from the central bank is not included in the debt numbers of 393 billion Ghana cedis that the minister reported. So that is another understatement. And that is why I'm saying that in the middle of crisis, what you need is credibility. Unfortunately, what the minister presented today lacks credibility. Because clearly, apart from the central bank financing that he failed to alert all of us, and going into the second half of the year, they will certainly borrow more. But the question is, apart from that, he announced that they have failed in achieving all the main targets that they set in the course of the year.
Okay, just a second. Just a second about the targets. I just want to bring in Dr. Dusakode on this quantitative easing point that you just touched on, which you say is in one of the appendixes, and the hard copies in short supply. So we haven't seen this ourselves, but you read from it from the press statement, from the press conference. I saw you hold the hard copy and you referred to the page and the appendix, etc. Dr. Dusakode, I mean, if this is the case, the government is engaged in quantitative easing, printing cash for the government, 22 billion cedis worth. Could it be damaging for the economy in the time of crisis?
Well, it depends on how you look at it and what it is used for. In a situation where you have a huge deficit and you want financing, you may want to resort to the central bank for some financing. It was not for nothing that in the past the government could borrow from the central bank up to 10% of the previous revenue. And so, well, you have to look at what it is used for. I've always had a friend who says that we should just allow the central bank to print to pay the arrears. And I'm of the view that when you are an import-dependent economy like that, you want to be careful in doing that because you end up sending the money that you have printed to somebody outside of your economy. So if it is used for locally produced items, then it's very likely that it will fuel growth in the economy. But also in the situation where whether or not it is used for imported or locally produced items, if you have a situation where the central government must find ways of financing, then it could be an option to resort to. Remember that the government has not been able to raise any bonds from the international capital market. So the government is really in a tight position and is looking for other alternatives to finance the expenditure.
I mean, Dr. Tufor, today was a mid-year budget review, and many of you and some expectors expected that the finance minister will come to the House and ask for more money. Isn't it a good thing that, in effect, he says, no, I'm not asking for new money. I'm going to live within my means. The country will live within its means. You're going to rely on, as he says, on the windfall we are getting from our oil exports. Don't you applaud him for that?
Evans, to start with, Parliament wouldn't have approved new money for them, considering the fact that we're already in a big hole. It is up to the government to understand that the troubles that we are in today, there's the need for them to cut down some of their frivolous expenditures. So indeed, if he had asked for new money, there was no way that I, in particular, working with my colleagues, would have approved new money for them. But the question is, will he stay within the money that he has already been approved for? The question is, let's wait and see, because it may be that they have they have not requested for new money, but apparently they may end up taking new money. So it's too early days yet for me to confirm that in the end they will not take new money.
So you the fact that you're going to rely on our windfall for you, you wouldn't have approved it. But he says today, in addition to relying on the windfall we are getting from our oil exports, he was clear. He put a timeline to turning around the economy, which is 2.5 years. Is that realistic based on what you heard today? And you said he's missed some of his targets already, but he's giving you a timeline, 2.5 years to turn around the economy. Is that realistic?
To start with, at least, it's a bold statement for him to say that within 2.5 years, they will try as much as they can to fix it. That's refreshing. But for me, it's not just talk. It is action. Unfortunately, the Midyear review is a major document that I was expecting that government is going to take up major actions to reverse the trend. Unfortunately, my opinion is an empty statement. It is full of English language and nothing economics. We are in economic crisis, not an English language crisis. So I was expecting that the minister responsible for finance would have confronted the situation with an economic solution. I did not see anything. It's just English language, because I could not see a major move towards revenue mobilization. Neither did I see a major move towards expenditure cut. So they are just touching the base without necessarily dealing with the root cause of the problem. The structure of the economy in particular, nothing was talked about it. It's just talk shop. So for me, it's as usual. And that, if that continues into the next year budget, I'm afraid to say that 2.5 years, as he has said, we may end up doing maybe twice those years to be able to fix the problem that we are in. Clearly, in my opinion, the government has lost the way. Things have fallen apart, and I don't know where we are going.
I mean, Dr. Dusakode, 2.5 years to turn around the economy. Realistic?
It's possible. It's good to be optimistic. Not maybe change the whole structure of the economy, but to some extent, they can do something. We know where to start from. Usually, when you want to turn things around, you touch on the base of the economy, and the base of most developing countries like us. The base of our economy has always to do with agri and manufacturing. And so, to the extent that they will be able to improve agricultural production, ensure food security, ensure that we can store for future use, ensure that transportation cost does not increase food prices, ensure that they can embark on agro-processing. With these two are the main base of every developing economy like ours. So if they can do that in 2 years, why not? And in addition to that, you should embark on a strong revenue mobilization domestically. Again, the public debt is so high that you wouldn't want to encourage the government to keep borrowing at this rate. You want them to mobilize enough revenue domestically. And what is key to this kind of turning things around is the stability that the IMF program is going to give the country. So with the stability, like I always say, the IMF will only give you stability and then they'll leave your country. Whatever you do with the stability is up to you. So if they're going to leverage on the stability that the IMF will give us to allow for investment, both local investors and foreign investors to also invest in the economy and grow the economy, yes, 2 years is a good time for them to at least do something about the base of the economy, and I've touched on agri manufacturing and then revenue mobilization. Strong measures for revenue mobilization.
Thankfully, we've just also been joined by the majority member on the Finance Committee. That's Dr. Stephen Amwa. Dr. Amwa, thank you for time on Top Story.
It's a big pleasure having me on your platform.
Doctor, let me start with this printing of cash, the quantitative easing that the minority have spotted in the appendixes in the hard copy of the budget review statement that is now with some of your colleagues now. Can you help us if you have any more information on why we have printed 22 billion cedis with the Bank of Ghana?
Evans, thank you. My regards to our listeners this very evening. To be very honest with you, as a result of asymmetric information management, I don't have any detailed information on this allegation. So it will be very difficult for me to be very precise and emphatic. But then, in any case, I have never seen anywhere in the world that printing of money has been a criminal act. I've never seen that. So I don't know the angle they are coming from.
Dr. Forsing says that it required Parliament to approval.
From Finance Ministry, when they said that in Parliament, I'll rush to go and find, and they told me that is not true. It is false. So I'm even shocked. But I'm not saying that as a matter of fact from my own primary whatever I'm giving you. But then the sources I'm getting from the ministry is that it is not factual what they are saying. So I think we need to exercise patience and take our time to find out from Bank of Ghana and the Finance Ministry to ascertain the facts of what they are saying, or otherwise.
On the media budget review, though, the case Dr. Forson mentioned that a lot of the targets have been missed, but the Finance Minister is clear that he will turn around the economy in 2.5 years. He says, though he's not asking for more money, he's going to rely on the windfall from our oil exports. Is that realistic?
Hello?
Yes. I was asking if that realistic. Is that realistic? Turn around in 2.5 years and not asking for more money.
I wasn't hearing you clearly, but I'm surprised what my ranking member is saying. That when you're talking about budget, it's basically about projections. And projections are normally bound to be actually adjusted either upwards or downwards, depending on the prevailing situations of the variables. And let's be very honest with you. We have cut down even expenditure by 30%. He's aware. Apart from that, he knows that the situation we find ourselves, which we all empathize with Ghanaians because we are Ghanaians. Basically, Evans, it's global. We keep on saying this. We want us to actually deviate and shift from the facts and try to deceive Ghanaians because they are in opposition and they want power. Please, let's ask ourselves, even debt to GDP, even GDP we're talking about, have we not improved upon them? We've done. Look at the figures. Even the figures today are better than the time they handed over Ghana to us, that we're not even going through these serious global supply chain issues. As I'm talking to you now, the COVID situation, since the COVID, US and UK inflationary rate has moved beyond 300%. And other countries in Africa, others are also probably better than our situation. The fact is, there are pieces of credible evidence to show that the whole globe is going through this serious situation that some places, even in the US, baby food you don't get. In situations such as this, we all have to acknowledge the fact that this is a systemic or systematic issue that you cannot easily work on as a sovereign country. It takes quite some time. And we are working closely making sure that these situations are restored. Then we can consolidate and then rectify issues that we are having confronting our fiscal space. He knows that. But they just want to do politics. And this is why I don't even understand all the good things that we have been able to do during this COVID. They don't want to talk about them. They don't want to accept the fact that this is not specifically an issue with us as a country. I'm not saying all our policies are good. Most of the issues that they are complaining are about 60-year-old problems that, they are cross-sectional. All governments were confronted with these things probably because of the way our economic framework is actually established right from colonial days up to now that we need to address. That one we agree. But the severity of what we are going through today is global.
Yeah. Dr. Amwa, thank you very much. Dr. Keisela Tofosim, grateful as well. Dr. Sarkodie, thank you too for joining us with your thoughts on the Midyear budget review. We have more on Newsnight, which starts right now.